Happy New Day. I hope you're doing well. I'm going to be posting the full, complete LA-MULANA Bestiary because this only exists on the PS Vita and the digital shop, and now that is going out. There are a few changes on the PS Vita, but they're relatively minor. Minor differences in translation. This one new skin, a shortcut in the Spring of the Sky. The main attraction here is this bestiary, with hand-drawn art by Naramura. I won't be reading all of the entries because this is a fairly long list from a fairly large game. Just be pausing for approximately 2 or 3 seconds on each image, and perhaps pointing out some interesting lore to be found here pertaining to the sequel and unfinished business. In the background, you can hear songs from the LA-MULANA Journey album, which came out with the Hidden Treasures edition release in Japan, but Nigoro have posted their remixes on the official site. Interspersed with that is the new LA-MULANA SSCC or MSX sound font remixes from LA-MULANA 2. So fairly new stuff. I should mention, the sidebars here are all the new sidebars that appear with LA-MULANA Hidden Treasures edition, with the exception of this one. This is one that appears in the sequel. Lore questions abound with the masked man and what tribe they belong to, etc. It's a fun bit about the snouters. Skeletons and skeletons do not appear in the sequel, which is a bummer, although I like the additions of the blue skeletons. I feel like we could have also used an Ilbat in the sequel, even if there are no true backsides in the Eglana ruins. I love that art. Once again, same tribe as the hairy people? Who knows? Forget if they appear in the sequel or not, but there is a relative of theirs that lives within the Dark Star-Lord's mausoleum. The lifesteal bird. The condor, in particular, and also listening to the bird calls that are present during the Hell Temple unlock sequence, leads me to believe that LA-MULANA, if it were real, would be located in the northwest portion of South America. Oop. Keep pressing the wrong buttons, gosh. Very important lore here. Part of the Sixth Children's giant tribe, perhaps related to Palenque. No motion here on whether or not these two are related to the twins or not. Headcanon, though, related to the twins. No mention here of whether or not it is related to A10, the super weapon in LA-MULANA 2, which is a real bummer for me. So the A10 connection and what the heck LMAC is and what it does still evades me. Very disappointed. But headcanon, I guess. Makes a brief cameo in LA-MULANA 2 during the Reachera boss fight. There are krakens in LA-MULANA 2, but they're more squid-like and larger. Interesting to note that it's a breed. Oh yes, this is one of the bits of dialogue from the Bestiary that made it online, but not all of it did, and almost none of these images ever made it onto the LA-MULANA wiki. Hence why I'm putting this out as more of a comprehensive take. I don't see it in the drawing, but I can barely make out that it could conceivably be a rat in the pixel art when you see it moving. No mention of whether or not this is a building contraption built by the Giants, because they have the Skyclops that are used to build up the Tower of the Goddess, so this could be their excavation tool. But headcanon. Just another thing, the theme of the Chamber of Extinction is that it's the remains of a bloody battle, and all of the people seared from the big awful blast that we learn in the sequel might have come from one of the 3 great weapons, well, technically 4 if you count A10. No, it would still be 3 because one of the 3 great weapons is just a supercomputer that houses a map. So the Naga and the Garuda fighting against each other. Appears in the sequel. I like the projectile attack that this uses was its main attack in the 2005 original. I kind of miss that. I also like that Hekatonkeri's Sentimani, which means 100 hands. I'm guessing that Hekatonkeri's also translates up, getting off topic. This is actually a re-recording. I originally did this as a video series. But as it went on and I recorded 7 or 8 videos because I wasn't sure if I could go over the 15-minute limit, it's not very pleasant to listen to. Such a mysterious figure. Was he the king? Or was he just an important warrior? How does Halahandara relate to all this? Or Jaladanhara? Jaladanjara? Yeah. Ooh. I went right past it, did I not? Yes, I did. I like to think that even though it was made afterward, that these are somehow tied into the lore, so to speak, of that Flash game, Miracle Witch, and the Sorcerer's Pebble. Really fun little game if you have an hour or 2 to spare. Well, that's if you want to replay it even. If you just play it the first time, then it's 45 minutes at most. The most evil one. Very interesting for those who are familiar with the LA-MULANA tomb lore. Funny thing from that first video, it was really complicated that I forgot to kill the Black Witch, so I had to open up a different save file, and yeah. It's a good thing that I'm re-recording this. So talking way less and just letting the bestiary speak for itself. The less cute older brother of the LA-MULANA special monster. Not sure if a lot of people know this, but if you kill the monster in that room with Mulbrook in the sequel enough, this thing is just terrifying. Personally, that thing terrifies me. Oh, and this is one of my favorite monsters in LA-MULANA. Really interesting lore, but you can look it up on your own. The Periton. Oh yeah, in the sequel, if you kill the small little orange guy, I think it's a Kabbalah or Kanalaba. If you kill the one in Mulbrook's tent room enough, then it'll start hanging out inside her tent. It's so adorable. A version of this, not Zu, but Anzu, is in LA-MULANA 2. I'm not sure which fight I like more. I was really hoping we'd find out, does Baphomet fight for the angels? Does it fight for the devils? Both the Black and the White Witch are seen during the summoning animation, I think. Yeah. You might remember the jumping snouter, the blue one, from General Ruins. Funny story there, but these are all based on real-life mythology. The snouters are actually more recent, taxonomic, scientific prank, basically. Jiangxi are cool. I'm glad that they're one of the more recognizable pop culture monsters. Much cooler than normal zombies. They actually require a necromancer and all that. Backbeard and Tai Sui, or One-Eyed and Hundred-Eyed. I could have sworn I read somewhere that Backbeard had a different name. That information, however, is on the wiki. It's like, not Tai Sui, Chi something, not Chi Yu either. A lot of Chinese monsters in the Endless Corridor, of course. Chinese inspired. This monster is just so sad. This poor boy. I love that monster. Just throwing it out there that the 2005 version of Hanuman was so much more terrifying. I'm not sure if Hanuman in this version or the sequel is more tame. Nah, definitely the sequel. Enkidu, you might know it's the friend character of Gilgamesh from the Epic of Gilgamesh, Babylonian mythology. Not where I would have thought that design would go, but it works. The great forest demon Humbaba, I believe that's the name, Humbaba, was a design. Its design was present for the sequel. Perhaps it would have appeared in the Tower of Oannes, so that's disappointing. Something to note here, that symbol on Beelzebub's tunic, is the symbol for the third child, and I can't believe I never put that together. Clearly a humanoid, clearly has wings. So what's the deal here? Why is Beelzebub, a third child, specifically guarding the mother? He played an even more significant role in the 2005 version, actually calling on the power of the 8 souls, and he had a much more varied moveset. Not that his sweep and shoot method in the sequel isn't pretty rough. Yes, all of this is taking place during the escape sequence. I'm guessing that translates to Secret Treasure of Life, which is what she drops, but I don't know Japanese words, letters. Not all 4 or 5 sets of them. I'm so glad that they gave this one an SSC remix. There's Chiyu, the person that I was getting confused with Backbeard's transliterated name. Which I've also I've seen Backbeard as Blackbeard, but which makes sense. Ba, which appears as a normal enemy in the sequel. Is it just... Alright, the music's just loading. This one's fun. Everybody's favorite. Such a cool design that just does not at all come through in the pixel art, and that's a shame. At least not for me. This is a sickle weasel. This is something I will never understand. Kama means sickle, Itachi means weasel, Kama Itachi, sickle weasel. I'm not sure why people don't translate things like that instead of transliterating them. That's just a funny name. I'm wondering which mythology this comes from. I mean, I would guess African, considering that it's in the Temple of Moonlight, but you never know. Things are spread around. There's actually a big old worm monster in the 2005 version that crawls around through the ground and then spits up things. I forgot that existed, even. Makes note of a nose, but there's no nose in either the drawn art or the pixel art. So confused. Also, turning to stone when bathed in light, that becomes an important lore detail in the sequel. So here's Anubis number 1. There's Anubis number 2, and then we meet the actual Anubis in the sequel, who's honestly a bit of a disappointment. Interesting to note here that they specifically say that this is a giant. And especially tough. Yes, very useful. Definitely one of the coolest monsters in LA-MULANA. It's got a laser sword, for Pete's sake. I believe that this is an Andean monster, and it's almost like a vampire where eventually the head comes back to rest during the day. Here's what I'm saying about V being a heavy-duty version of a Cyclops. In LA-MULANA lore, I saw the... Well, I know there are several. One of the Russian movie versions of V, which was, I think, a short story. It was all right. I don't recommend it, but it's fun to tell more as a story. Vimana, which become common enemies in LA-MULANA 2. It was really nice to meet the person who invented the Vimana. Still loading. I'm just going to take a moment to fiddle around with the music. And here we go, an American monster, as far as I know. The only other time I've seen it represented in media is in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There we go. Next song's up and running. At least it's in the process. Ah, yes. The Three Spirits. Pixel art really let you down with this one. Perhaps I should channel Dakini more in my own life. Nua. Not only does she have the one that she's a reanimated first child, but of course we learn in the sequel that she's considered a failure because she needs to remain by the pyramid, that she somehow gets her power from the pyramid, and she's able to create the spiral of life, the DNA, which reflects in Hell Temple's spiral design, hence why it's called Spiral Hell. This version of the game in particular, I'm not sure if it carries over into the Hidden Treasures edition, but it doesn't do the accent U, so it's N Chinese character Wa. LA-MULANA has a lot of cameos from different games. There's a pun in there. What a fun design. Everybody loves Skanda. Everybody should love Skanda. Fun thing, Skanda is a lot of things, but it's primarily the name of a particular legendary bodhisattva, which may or may not be real. I mean, I'm not going to get into all that. But in Japan, Skanda is known as Idaten. And it's its own thing. If you are able to run a certain distance in a day as a ninja, then they will call you an Idaten as a honorary title. Now this is just a sick design. That's a tattoo design right there. For example, something they changed is that you can't meet Phobos in this version of the game unless you kill Kusariku, and you have the dimensional key. Kululu. This confirms that the rock itself is the monster. Don't you assume what's gonna happen. Supposedly the firstborn. That supposedly right there is very important, as we will soon see. This is just a fun name to say. Umu de Brutu. With electricity. Said to have been used as a mount. And the funny thing about the design here, it's clearly more than an actual child of Timlet, based off of the design of the god Marduk, which we know in LA-MULANA is one of the Anunnaki. Now, here we see Tiamat. She is also a first child, but she was a living first child. However, she's got the number, if this will adjust, it won't. She's got the number 2 mark there on her side. Gave birth to 11 monsters and more. Yeah. She's rather large, so that would make you think that perhaps she's a second child, or perhaps first children just grow differently. I believe it's clearly stated that she is a living first child, as opposed to Nuwa, who was a reanimated corpse. What, we're in Hell Temple already? I guess so. I'm sure everyone's put it together very clearly that this is indeed Naramura's special character design. Although these days he just mostly uses his own face. Good for him. Huge lore dump. Huge, huge lore dump right here. Naramura has joked about being the father of the ruins in previous developer rooms. But this could mean that the mother somehow can't create life on her own, or at least she had to involve some other mechanism to get started. Is this an essential part of the mother's body, or what? And I mean, this is even before getting into the fact, creating life, was that the mother's original purpose? Did she create the first child, Eglana, specifically to house the life? Because she birthed the life, but it all civilization seems to have started and really made a place for itself in Eglana, where she eventually planned to switch her body into, and it's just crazy. And Hell Temple / Spiral Hell is the only part, well, the main part of LA-MULANA that survived. Really, kudos to Draquet for making it in here. Exiles. An important thing. Everything in Hell Temple is an outcast, including Draquet. I wish that more of the Hell Temple monsters made it into LA-MULANA. Regular lizardmen made it into